I got a new ally, new friend here, Joey Comley, the new director at Kentucky Right on Crime. Joey served as a judge advocate in the Army. He's now opened a law practice in Elizabethtown that specializes in representing members of the military in civil and criminal cases, and he's the new director of the Kentucky chapter of Right on Crime. Welcome, Joey. Glad to have you today. I know you're traveling down there in Texas, but we appreciate you taking a few minutes here as we've been kind of doing an overview of what's happening with our legislative session. And I know you've been following lots of things there closely, and we're glad to have you. Welcome to as the new director for Kentucky Right on Crime. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and the folks listening in and around Lexington.
Yeah. Well, first of all, tell us just a little bit about Right on Crime. I'm a big fan and just really support what you're trying to do here and what you are doing. And just tell us a little bit about that and what you hope to achieve while you're here.
Sure. So while I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, first off. So I'm raising kids. I'm a homeowner and a business owner in Elizabethtown. And obviously, with my military background, I chose Kentucky, and it's home for me. So I'm not going anywhere, not anytime soon, anyhow. So what Right on Crime does is it advances conservative criminal justice solutions. So what that means on my level as a state director is that I'm charged with educating, providing research, and advocating conservative criminal justice solutions on a legislative agenda, right? So I work with the legislature, I work with, the executive branch, implementing agency leads and officials, but I also work to build coalitions of business leaders, philanthropists, and community leaders so that they're connected with lawmakers who are likewise committed to expanding conservative programs that prevent crime, restore victims, reform offenders, and reduce taxpayer costs.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to hint that you're going anywhere. I'm glad you're not. I'm glad you're here with us and certainly looking forward to working on these issues. But so crime and what to do about it has been front and center during this legislative session. I guess, Joey, if you had to maybe list the priorities of policymakers, certainly the budget, we talked about that earlier, is the top constitutional responsibility, if you want to get technical about it in that sense. That's probably the top priority of legislators. But I would say that crime and keeping and policy designed to keep the public safe and to bring safety and ensure safety is right up there as one of the top priorities for legislators, wouldn't you?
Yeah, Jim, I would agree completely. And I think we've heard that echoed from, the summer of 23 at every event, whether it was, small town halls in northern Kentucky with their Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, or it was Kentucky Association of Counties, League of Cities, and everywhere in between. Crime has been kind of the number one legislative priority apart from passing a budget. And quite frankly, the legislature has cashed in on that promise. I mean, House Bill 5 isn't the only crime bill by any means that's passed this legislative session. They've been very busy and very diligent in, passing laws that are intended to make Kentucky safer.
Yeah, and we don't, and of course, House Bill 5, as you said, is one of those bills, and we don't need to spend all of our time on that, but I would like to touch base with you on that, just kind of where we are. The bill passed a pretty contentious session there on Friday in the state Senate, but it passed, and there was a lot of amendment activity and offering and withdrawing of amendments. It was really pretty interesting political theater, I guess, if you like that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, I guess the bill really it's a big bill. It's got a lot of different parts to it. I know there's some things in there that are probably going to help us, and that we certainly do want to send the right messages about violent crime. About we want to have resources for dealing with that. So where are we in this process, and what would you say this kind of opens the door to doing here in Kentucky? Maybe we could approach it with that perspective.
I think as far as House Bill 5 goes, and really any law goes, once it's enacted, I'm a perpetual optimist, and I state that for purposes of kind of warning the audience, right?
Yeah.
Specifically as it relates to House Bill 5, I think it provides a great deal of opportunities. I think these are opportunities that will shed light on problem areas that are truly impacting public safety in the Commonwealth, and our individual and collective prosperity. I think by being called out to enforce new laws that impact vulnerable populations, such as the homeless, who will now have increased interactions with law enforcement, I think our officers will have a huge increase in not only the number of call-outs, but also in the complexity of those call-outs and those interactions. I mean, you're talking about law enforcement dealing with a population that, at its lowest number, is estimated 37% of our homeless population is suffering from mental health or substance abuse issues. Well, I would posit that the other 63% is not having the best day of its life if it started off homeless, right? So these are folks who are experiencing significant troubles in their lives, and now they're further complicated by interactions with law enforcement. So in addition to that, I think we'll see an increased burden on investigators who are trying to solve crimes that are kind of flooding their desks. I think that'll increase investigative timelines and prosecution timelines. And I don't think this will be sufficiently offset by the increased pressure to plea, which is, quite frankly, the only known product of harsher sentences.
So maybe this legislation will begin another discussion about actually providing the resources and targeting resources to where they're needed. You know, more police officers, more help for our law enforcement, more detectives. I mean, is that where the conversation should go? Since the legislature really has been committed to passing this in some form, and in its present form, it seems like it doesn't really maybe address those issues, but maybe it sets us up to address those in the future. Is that the mindset we should have about this?
That's what I'm shifting to, Jim. And it's my job to hunt the good stuff, right? And that's exactly what I'm doing. I mean, I'm looking to ensure that where we head with the future of Kentucky is one that doesn't necessarily implement all of the portions of House Bill 5, but serves to utilize House Bill 5's passage in a way that truly gets after some of the shortfalls that, again, I think are really plaguing Kentucky and its criminal justice system. So, I mean, at the end of the day, when we look at kind of how House Bill 5 progressed, what we ended up with as a legislative solution, I think that, you had some well-intentioned efforts. You had folks from all sides of the political spectrum. You had Senator Westerfield working hand in glove with the bill sponsors. And if all those efforts haven't really changed votes or the substance, I really don't see that happening. So it's time for me, and I think it's time for a lot of folks to advance some solutions and see if we can kind of part the clouds and search for the rainbow that's on the other end of House Bill 5.
Yeah, and how much of this too is duplicative? Joey, I get the sense a lot of times when it comes to certain, especially in the criminal justice areas, and I hear this from people a lot is, hey, why don't we just enforce the bills and the laws that we already have on the books? And how much of this, I mean, and maybe some of this is to refocus on some of these areas and to try to reduce crime. I think that should be the goal, is to make people safer. And, if life and liberty are not safe, then if life and property are not safe, we don't really have liberty and freedom, right? So that's something we should be concerned about. But how much of this is maybe duplicative, and maybe we need to, maybe it's not just about passing a new bill. And I don't mean just this session. I mean, any time, but it's about enforcing what's already on the books, whether it be about homelessness or drugs or any other crime.
I think what you're getting at, Jim, is the product of extensive study of existing programs and existing laws and existing solutions that we have. And ideally, that takes place on the front end of drafting legislation. Again, I don't think that happened here with House Bill 5, but I think that, the proverbial ship has sailed on some of that. And I think now we're going to deal with, okay, well, then let's collect the data on the implementation of House Bill 5, and let's use that to kind of shape further refinement of House Bill 5 in coming legislative sessions. I think that the other thing you touched on there was kind of prosecutorial and judicial discretion. I think sometimes the legislative branch has some issues with how that is exercised by individual prosecutors and individual judges. And I think sometimes we offer legislative solutions to help correct that. And I think House Bill 5 it is intended to do some of that in the form of, mandatory service timelines for sentences, and in the form of, mandating certain punishments for certain offenses. Same things with 3 strikes. I mean, it takes away the prosecutor's ability to kind of influence the outcome of certain cases, and also ties the hands of the judge in considering individual facts and circumstances, which if that's what the people of Kentucky want, then that's what they'll get from House Bill 5.
Well, we'll see how it works out. And I think you're right. It's going to open maybe as we look at the results of this, it will maybe lead to some better policy and some opportunities in the future. Joey Comley, thanks so much. I know you've got a busy day. I appreciate you calling in all the way from Texas. Joey's the new director of Kentucky Right on Crime, and I'm so looking forward to working with you on these issues in the future. And thanks for coming to our state and helping us and being here and being a true Kentuckian forever, I hope.
Yes, sir. Jim, it's always a pleasure. I appreciate it, and thanks for the audience.
Safe travels, my friend.